GhostBSD reviews, tutorials and gaming.
If you thought that all BSDs required you to delve into the terminal and command line, we're going to show you something different today. An install and setup of a fully working BSD desktop system without touching the command line even once. Before we start, if this is your first time to the channel and you would like to learn more about FreeBSD and the journey to a better desktop and server, then please hit subscribe and hit the bell so you don't miss out. This is the GhostBSD homepage. It's very slick, very well thought out and designed. There's loads of information on there about previous releases, what's available, and the sponsors, etc. There's some information about previous releases if you need to fix something, especially versions 18.10 and 18.12. So if you're still using them, then this will fix your problems. To download, just click on the download. You can purchase ones directly from OS Disk. You can download the Mate and the XFCE versions. But it is to be said that the official builds only come with Mate. It's the community editions which actually come with XFCE. So once you've decided that you want to download, you need to click on Direct Download. You could use torrent, but we're going to use direct download on this one. And choose the nearest mirror to yourself. For me, it'd be the French or the France mirror. And then that's it. You can donate if you wish. It's a worthy cause if you want to donate. It helps them with their development of this wonderful version. As you can see, it's downloading. It's 2.6 gigabyte ISO, which is, it's not huge. Then using your favorite application, whether or not it's command line or a GUI, use it to burn either to a DVD or to put onto a USB stick. Once that's done, boot into the system as usual with the USB stick or the disk in your drive or USB port, and then that will take you to the live desktop session, which we'll show you in a minute. Here we are on the opening screen of the GhostBSD install. As you can see, there are 6 options. They're very similar to the options available on FreeBSD that I showed in the previous video. I'll leave a link down below to that particular video where I actually go through all the options. But you've got boot options, kernel, reboot, escape, boot single user, and at the top, boot multi-user, which is the default. If you were to leave it to count down or press enter, it would automatically default to that top one anyway. So the installation for GhostBSD will be, I would say, easier, but perhaps more familiar to some Linux users who are used to the more GUI type of install. Right, so what we'll do, we'll press enter and we'll get going to the install. It's not too bad. It's using FreeBSD 13, which is the current version, which is the development version. It's not the release candidate, so it will have more advanced features than the current release, but perhaps may not be what you want to use in a production environment. Right, so we got onto the X configuration menu. Now this is new as compared to previous releases of GhostBSD, and I think it's a very welcome addition. At the very top you got Xorg. If you want to start the live desktop using an auto configuration, so you let the system guess what it needs. Start the desktop with no configuration, so hopefully it works. If you're testing the GhostBSD on an NVIDIA-based system, then the third one down, which is the NVIDIA option, it will load in the appropriate driver for your card. Mode set, if that's what you're wanting. If you're using an Intel based driver, then Intel_DRM is what you want. If you've got an older Intel graphics system, then you need to use the legacy Intel. The AMD, if you've got a Radeon card. VESA, if you are having problems with the others, it's the minimum standard. It'll pretty much work on anything. SCFB, if you want that. If you're using on VirtualBox, like I am now, then this will load in the extras needed. Drop to emergency shell, reboot, and exit. So because I'm actually doing this on VirtualBox, I will obviously go down to the VirtualBox desktop. There you go, and press enter. You're going to get a few errors popping up. They can be ignored. It doesn't stop the overall testing. Right, that wasn't too bad. And there you go. You have live DVD or live desktop for GhostBSD. GhostBSD used to be based upon FreeBSD directly, but now it's based upon TrueOS, which in itself is based on FreeBSD. And GhostBSD now uses the TrueOS repositories for its packages. So now you have the live session. We'll have a quick look if you wish at what's available. You get accessories, education, graphics, internet, office, sound and video, and system tools. You get the places, so your home, desktop, computer, network, connected server, Mate search tool, and recent documents. And you get preferences, administration, control center, about, log out, and shut down. Pretty standard, really, of any Mate desktop. It's detected the Ethernet connection, and then you've got the date, of course. And right-clicking brings up the usual create folder, launch folder, create document, open terminal, organize, keep align, and change desktop background. Of which those who may be interested in the desktop background, well, there's not a fantastic amount to choose from. It's a little bit slow being a live DVD. I think it comes with a standard array. So what we'll do, we'll start the install process. As you can see, this on the desktop, there is actually a large icon which says install GhostBSD. So if you are from a Linux background, or you just want to try something different to your usual Linux distro, then this will look not unfamiliar. So obviously we're going to click on install. And immediately brings up a welcome to GhostBSD screen. Again, looks all very familiar if you use Linux Mint or Ubuntu or any of those user-friendly distributions. It looks very familiar. So because of English, I'll keep it the default. I'm going to click on next. And we want English UK. So scroll down. It doesn't really matter, but it can mess your keyboard up if you don't pick the right one. So English, Australian, Cameroon, Canada. Who knew there were so many different variations? Right, I want UK, that's right. Just a standard UK one. It doesn't have my keyboard, which is a Sun Type 7. FreeBSD does, but this one doesn't have it. No, it doesn't have it. But that's okay, that's fine. I'll just use the standard one. Just click next. And go down to Europe. Again, you do this according to wherever you are in the world. Europe and London. Now, it gives you a choice, which I think is very good. You can have your UFS full disk configuration, UFS custom disk, or ZFS full disk. So, but as it says there, recommended option for backends. So if you're using this as a server, ZFS, it goes without saying ZFS is the best one to pick. I always tend to pick, I know it goes against what some people like to say, but I always pick UFS for desktop. If I was using a workstation or a server, possibly ZFS. But if I'm just doing a general desktop, or even a laptop, I tend to always pick UFS because it's lighter. And UFS is older, it's very much older, but it's stable. And so is ZFS, but UFS is tried and trusted. It's not an ever shifting target, really. ZFS has gone through different iterations over time. It's now on ZFS on Linux, and it's doing very well. And the benchmarks for FreeBSD show that it's performing exceptionally well on FreeBSD, ironically, as compared to Linux. But I always tend to go with UFS. I mean, that's fine. I always choose UFS on a desktop. So on this occasion, I will also choose UFS. I'll go down, click next. Again, swap size. I'll put a gigabyte. Oops. And click that one because it's the only hard drive available. So at the bottom there you can see it's chosen the GPT as a partitioning scheme, and then the file system is UFS with soft journaling. It means you don't really suffer from any data loss. I think it's the equivalent of ext4 on Linux. Right, we'll click next and set up FreeBSD boot manager or FreeBSD BIOS loader only. Again, this really depends on the circumstances in which you're installing. Boot manager, if you've got another operating system already on your system and you sort of like dual booting, I suppose, then that would come into it. But we'll just click, because it's the only one we have on this virtual machine, we'll click FreeBSD BIOS loader only. Password, well, self-explanatory. I'm going to do a password. You see. No, it's telling me it's super weak, but, that's just the way it is. Click next. Real name, well, I always put RoboNuggie. It fills in the host name for you, which is good. I'm going to leave it at that because, well, it's fine. It fills in the username and password. Yeah, again, it's going to be super weak, and it gives you them dots. And shell, well, fish is fine, but I always tend to use sh. It gives you a good choice, though. Bash. I've not heard of that one before. I'll choose sh. It's the one that I tend to always go with a FreeBSD install. I click install, and that's it. So it's fairly easy. It's on par very much with vast majority of Linux distros, in the sense that you get a graphical user interface when it comes to installing, and everything is pretty much taken care of. So if you can install Linux on a system, you can install GhostBSD with no problem at all. I do appreciate what they've done on GhostBSD. I do appreciate that they're trying to make it as painless as possible, or as more familiar as possible. So anyone transitioning over from Linux to a FreeBSD, or in this case GhostBSD system, will feel more at home. One thing about GhostBSD, it does take a while to install, so what I'll do is I will fast forward this part and come back to you when it's done. And right, there, the installation is complete. Installation is complete. You need to restart the computer in order to use the new installation. You can continue to use this live media, although any changes you make or documents you save will not be preserved on reboot, which, goes without saying, really. So there you are. All done. I'll restart it and continue from there. Right, so we're back on the main boot screen. This time I've taken out the ISO from the VirtualBox virtual drive. So now we're booting into the install system. And the reason why I've chosen VirtualBox really is so I can show you the steps from start to finish, as they would be on a real hardware system anyway. It really would be impossible for me to film installing on a real computer, in the sense that you'd have to put with a shaky cam. Although the day will come when I will buy a video capture device, and that's not going to be far off. But for now, VirtualBox now. So yeah, you get the same menus really. You get 6 options as you did on the live media on the live media session. And in this case, we're just going to go again. We're just going to press enter for the default one, which is built into multi-user. So again, we're on the desktop of the GhostBSD install. It will look exactly, and it does look exactly as the same as the live session. But that's fine. That's what it's meant to be. And again, if you're from Linux, then that will look very familiar. And the process was relatively painless. And you've got a fully working BSD-based desktop. There are a few subtle differences between a BSD-based desktop and a Linux one. And package management perhaps is one of them. And the way that memory is monitored. So say, for instance, you go down to System Monitor. It will tell you there that it's 990 roughly megabytes used, which you might think is a bit stiff. But if I go down to a terminal and type in top, it's 290 is actually in use at the moment, as opposed to 1 gigabyte. The reason for the discrepancy is the fact that a lot of the monitors, say for instance HTOP and the system monitor in Mate, are kind of, I'm going to say Linux centric, but they're devised for Linux, and they will report the memory in a slightly different way as to how it actually is implemented in FreeBSD or FreeBSD based systems. So it's telling you that it's 290 megabytes is used. It's actually being used right now in active. And there's 33 megabytes inactive. And 715 is, well, it's reserved if you need it to be used. But of course the system monitor puts it as all being used. And in FreeBSD, unused memory is wasted memory. Might as well use it up if you've got it. And the system will use as much as it needs. It will release it if you need it. If I'm going to open up an Office application, it will release that memory or give me some memory that it's got spare. It's never wasted in FreeBSD. And it's not something to really worry about. You see, if you've got an 8 gigabyte system or a 16 or 32, you might as well use the memory. It's there to be used. It won't have a negative impact on your system. It's not going to slow down. You'll be just fine. But you've got to bear in mind that FreeBSD or BSD systems report the memory in a slightly different way than what Linux does. And you can get hung up about how much it's using. You might say, oh, look, there's a gigabyte being used. Oh, it's very heavy. And that, well, actually, no. 295 is being used. So it's no big deal. I just want to point that out because sometimes I see that in reviews and it's not always the case. It's not what it seems. I can't vouch for Linux, of course. I can't say if a system is using all that because I don't use Linux as such. But in this case, you're using just shy of 300 megabytes. Anyway. Close that one down and close that one down, and just to show you that it's 64-bit FreeBSD 13, 8 gigabytes. It's running on my usual system on VirtualBox. Right, okie dokie. So you got your basic install. It's nothing fancy. The programs are, very basic. Accessories, you've got the usual accessories. Education, graphics, internet, free Firefox, of course. If you want to update the system once it's just been newly installed, which is always a good idea to get security patches and the latest versions available. Normally I would do it via the command line. as I saw in the FreeBSD for Linux users video. But in this case, I will go with a graphic way of doing it. And you get two options. You get Software Station and Update Station. And I tell you, it says install and remove softwares, Update Manager for system and software. So we'll click on Update Station and see what that brings up. Updates available. So right, there's an update to actual Update Station, which is a barely an update, and there's an update to the Software Station. So we'll install them anyway. And then we'll run it again to see if there's any other updates available. It's interesting it didn't ask for the user password. Okay. Well, we need to restart, so again, we'll come back. So we're back on the newly rebooted system. It's interesting that you don't usually tend to have to do that on FreeBSD, but okay. So we're going to check again to the update. Go down to Update Station, see if there are actually any updates available. So at the moment it's just running through. And now it's actually telling me that there's lots of updates available. Well, I said lots, I mean, yeah, it's about right for a system that's been out for a while. So, right, okay, interestingly, at the top of the list is that. Let's have a VirtualBox additions. Okay. A lot of them are minor updates, point releases, for instance. It's updating Mate from 1.20 to 1.22. Okay, that's a reasonable jump. Installing Linux base for compatibility. Firefox at the moment is version 66. We'll be up to 67. And I think is that it. Is there a LibreOffice? LibreOffice from 6.0.7. You know, LibreOffice's version numbers are huge. Oh, that's a big jump from 6.0.7_6 to 6.2.4. Okay, that's fine. So what we'll do, we'll install the updates. 750 odd updates. 765 actually. Again, for about the third time, I'll get back to you when it's finished. Okay. Now that's done. Again, another restart. And again, once that's done, we'll get back to it. Right, so we're back in the, again, newly booted desktop. And what we'll do, the cursor is busy. That's interesting. The sound on Ethernet has moved position, but that's okay. What we'll do is, just one more time, we'll check the update station to see if now there's no updates available. This system is up to date, as I expected, which is good. What we'll do now is that we'll have a look at the software update via the software station. So I'll enter my ever so secure password. And there you go. You just synced with the database. Now that looks instantly familiar. You won't feel out of place by using this if you're a Linux user used to a more friendlier version. Forward and backwards of your choices, of course. This one lets you check what's available from the internet, from your repositories. And this will be what's installed on your system. Okay. So I'm going to change the theme because I find this start being very confusing. Right, that's slightly better. That's better for me to see now. So this will give you an indication of what's installed and what isn't installed. This is what's installed in your system. And this is what's available via the repository. Let's have a look. I have the resolution a bit low, and so it's not fitting all on the screen. But I think you can get the gist of this. But say if I want to install, I don't know. Let's have a look. Some finance. Yeah, it's always good to have a bit of finance. GNU Cache. Or New Cache. So I've selected it. You won't have to keep moving the window backwards and forwards because your resolution will be higher than what's shown on the screen. But once it's selected, click Apply, and it will start to install. Always go through refreshing the repository before it starts. So it's basically doing everything that the FreeBSD system would do when you see it doing on the command line via pkg install or portmaster. But it's doing it hides a lot of the background activity by giving it a little progress bar at the bottom. All done. And to test whether it's actually installed, we'll go down to Office, no doubt, and there it is, look, GNU Cache. There we go. So it's fairly automatic. It's pain-free, really. Not bad at all. Again, I apologize for the low resolution. I could make it bigger, but I often find that setting the resolution relatively low is easier for everyone to see without having to zoom in all the time. But you get the gist of what I'm trying to show you. So yes, it's fairly easy. I mean, you get a selection of games. You get everything that Linux has. There are one or two, of course, omissions. There's no official Steam client for FreeBSD or FreeBSD-based systems. But as I've shown in other videos, Wine can do a very good job at running Steam anyway. Euro Truck Simulator, for one of them, Euro Truck Simulator 2 runs excellently on Wine and Steam. But yeah, everything you want is there. So really, the install, I mean, for me personally, on a personal level, I've installed FreeBSD so many times now that I could do it blindfold. To me, it's not difficult at all. But for a new user, it may seem intimidating. And GhostBSD, what they attempt to do, and I've achieved to do, they've actually achieved it, is to take basically a FreeBSD system and wrap it up in a Linux GUI type of wrapper and present it to a new user and say, look, it's not scary, it's not intimidating, which they've managed to do. Everything is set up easy. You install, package management, update. It does reboot. I mean, truth be told, it does tend to reboot a few more times than FreeBSD does when it comes to updating. But I mean, you know, there's only minor details. I mean, this is not a review of GhostBSD. This is really to show you how accessible that BSD can be. So to me, this is almost. I mean, this is almost the Ubuntu of BSD world. It's really super easy to install. But you mustn't. But there's a certain inherent danger in this, in that you mustn't assume. Although there is a tendency to perhaps assume that because it looks like and behaves like a Linux distribution, that it is a Linux distribution, and anyone expecting it to be that will be, I think, disappointed. If you expect it to be a BSD install, then you'll be pleasantly surprised how accessible it can be. I think they've set out laudable objectives, and I think that for about 99% of them, they've met them objectives very well. So we're in a very good place at the moment with BSDs. We have FreeBSD as the core system. TrueOS is also a core system. You've got GhostBSD, Project Trident, and Nomad BSD. Then you've got a few peripheral ones like Hardened BSD, and then you've got the two non-FreeBSD based systems. You've got NetBSD and OpenBSD. They also fulfill a certain niche. So at the moment, we're well catered for. Would I recommend GhostBSD to a Linux user? Oh yeah, definitely. So yeah, that's GhostBSD for a Linux user. A Linux user should feel at home in using GhostBSD. It shouldn't be a culture shock as such. So yeah, highly recommended. Thanks for watching, and I'll catch you next time. If you want to see more videos like this, then hit that like button. And to make sure you don't miss out, please consider subscribing, as this really helps me help you.